Go ahead, Ms. Stacy.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us for our very first town hall meeting for our parents and our guardians, community stakeholders. We really appreciate that you have decided to join us this evening. And next, we will have greetings from our superintendent, Mrs. Cheryl Watson Harris.
Good evening to all of our DeKalb County School parents and guardians and those who care deeply about our students who have joined us this evening. I'm Cheryl Watson Harris, the new, and I don't know if I'm so new anymore, but the very proud superintendent of DeKalb County School District. As Ms. Stepney, our Chief Academic Officer, shared, this is the first in what we hope to be a series of town halls with our parents. It's our intention to make sure that we create as many formal and informal opportunities to engage with all of our stakeholders, to have an opportunity to address any questions, issues, or concerns that you may have regarding our virtual learning experience or our return to face-to-face plans. So welcome again. We know it's the end of probably what was a very busy day for you. So we appreciate you taking time away from your family or with your family to tune in and be in community with us. Please know how much we absolutely appreciate that. The title of the virtual town hall was an evening with Cheryl Watson Harris, the superintendent, but I'm joined by my phenomenal team. So this evening, you'll have an opportunity not only to hear from me, but also, and probably more importantly, to hear from other members of the leadership team that provide expertise, commitment, and real know-how in terms of the work that we do every day in DeKalb County School District for our beautiful and brilliant scholars. So the purpose of this town hall, if we can just advance the slide, is to make sure that we share measures to keep our students and staff safe. We have been very clear from the beginning, while we're in the midst of this pandemic and this unprecedented time, that this safety of our students and staff would be our #1 priority, and kind of the North Star that we use to guide our work, our plans, and our promises to the larger community. It's also our intention this evening to provide information that parents need to know in preparation for returning to face-to-face learning. We've heard many questions from our parent advisory group in the emails that I receive and other leaders throughout our system receive, with many, many questions about what we're doing to return to face-to-face, as well as what face-to-face instruction will look like. You all received an invitation to complete a intent to return to school form or survey, and many parents have said, well, I don't know what it's going to look like, so I don't know whether or not I want my child to return just yet. So this evening, we hope to kind of fill in any of the gray areas so that you can be most informed to make the very best decision for you and for your children. And then lastly, to address questions posed by parents and community stakeholders. We hope that you have already felt and believe that this administration, we want to be extremely accessible, transparent, and available to parents. And so we welcome, although we're not able to always respond every email that we receive, we want you to know that we're reading them, that we appreciate your questions, your issues that you raise, your feedback, suggestions, and we're hoping that these town halls will serve as an opportunity for us to respond to the questions that have been posed by parents and our community stakeholders. You could just advance the next slide, please. So this is really our commitment. And I think that this visual really represents it very well. Our intention is to be collaborative. None of the decisions that we have been made in isolation. All of the decisions that we have made regarding virtual instruction regarding our plans for return to face-to-face have been done in collaboration with multiple stakeholders, community internal and external stakeholders, as well as guidance and information from our internal COVID-19 task force that you've heard from many times at our board meetings, as well as our medical advisory COVID-19 task force. So we've tried to be a system that continues to listen and to learn and be very collaborative in nature in terms of the decision-making process and the way that we're leading the system. Probably the green one, if we go back, please, most importantly, around communication. Our intention is to over-communicate. We have our weekly newsletter that goes out that's jam-packed with information about what's happening each week in the system, as well as where we are in our decision-making to return to face-to-face, what metrics we're using, what other resources are available both here in DeKalb, throughout our state, and even national resources that inform our decision-making process. We communicate via our website. We hope that you have found that very useful in terms of being kept up to date and in terms of our plans, as well as ways we're continuing to explore, robocalls, text messages, making sure that things are going out in our major languages in our system. So over communication is definitely one of our major priorities. And now tonight, this town hall is yet another example of our intention to over communicate our plans, the intention, and the decision-making process leading up to that. The purple one, I think, is, our commitment to you, but we're hoping is your commitment, and what we ask from you is that we all have to be flexible and patient during this time. I think what we've seen is that we have very polarizing views throughout our system on whether we should be going back, whether we should be staying virtual. But we're really trying to make sure that we're all being flexible and patient, recognizing that we're in unprecedented times, that there's no blueprint for this, and what might be good from one system may not be what's right for DeKalb. And so we have to be extremely flexible during this time. Also to be adaptable, that's kind of just going along with that line, that we have to make sure that, as information changes, as guidance changes, that we adapt in real time and make sure that we are doing what's right for our students and our staff. So we hope that all of that ensures us that we continue to provide an engaging learning experience for all of our students. And for us in DeKalb, that remains the core. We like to say that's the main thing, that we want to keep the main thing. And that's always that our children are learning, that they are joyful, that they know that they are loved by not only all of you, but by all of the champions that work for DeKalb County School District, that we want to make sure that they are learning and that they are happy, whether that be in a virtual space or as we prepare for them to return to face-to-face. So again, we thank you. We thank you for your partnership. We thank you for your praise and acknowledgement when we do things well. We thank you for your push and your challenge and your critical feedback when you think we may not be hitting the right mark. We are here, we are committed, and we're keeping our focus on what is best for our beautiful and brilliant scholars. And we thank you. We thank you for trusting DeKalb County School District with your babies, with your beautiful children. And please know that you are in good hands, that you are a part of a school system of people that really love your children and want to do the very, very best so that they can become all they're meant to be in this world. So with that, I have an amazing team of leaders that I have the honor of working with every day. I'm going to turn it back over to our Chief Academic Officer, Stacy Stepney, who's going to facilitate the rest of the presentation. But I am here in community community. And I will also be available to respond to some of the questions at the end of the presentation. Thank you so much, Ms. Stepney, and thank you to everyone who's joined in this evening.
Thank you, Mrs. Watson-Harris. I know that everyone who is listening, we are all excited that we have a leader who leads with grace. She is one who gives us the space to think, to work, to investigate, and really problem solve. And we problem solve together because we want our students, again, to have the best learning experience possible. Tonight, our agenda is as follows. We will now provide a status update on our COVID-19 status as far as the district is concerned. We will also hear from different areas about our district reopening readiness. And many parents pose questions that fall into different categories. So you will have an opportunity to hear from operations, finance, human resources, teaching and learning, technology, as well as what are some of those mental health supports that we are offering to our students, families, and our staff members. So first, let's dive into our guiding document. And as Mrs. Watson-Harris stated earlier, we must be adaptable. As we receive new information, we revisit the information and we revisit our plans because we know that we have to shift. And so most recently, the Georgia Department of Public Health released new guidance documents, and that was dated back on September the 11th. Once we reviewed the information and worked with our nurse who works hand in hand with us, we met with our medical experts. We looked at it and said we needed to adjust our data targets. So as you look at the screen, you will notice that our data targets have changed since the very first time that we published this particular document. And now we have a clear delineation in the yellow area as to what it means. Prior to receiving the new guidance, we had a very large range, and it was 6 to 100. And so being 6 to 100 left it very wide open. And now the new guidance shares with us that we have a moderately high category, and that refers to cases, the number of cases per a 14-day period per 100,000 DeKalb County residents must be less than 100, but 51 to 100 now is the range. And then you move to the moderate category, it's 11 to 50 cases per 100,000 DeKalb residents for a 14-day period. And what is also important to note is that now we refer to the green, which is more of a traditional where things are back to what used to be, maybe normal. There's no such thing as no spread. And so we have removed that terminology because we know that there will always be a risk of something, but it's how we are dealing with it as a society and how the medical community has helped to advance knowledge and treatments and cures and whatever we have at the time. So I want to share that that last column is now referred to as low. And so the category range is 0 to 10. And also on this chart, I want to remind everyone that we as a district understand you have to make the best decision for your own family. And so once we started this journey together, we heard from families who said, you know, we would like to make sure you continue with distance remote learning as an option. So what you will note is that in phase 1 and phase 2, our students are in distance remote learning. But as we shift from phase 3, 4, and 5, we're making distance remote learning an option that's available at all times. So we have a plan that will shift when it is safe for us to do so. We will shift phases. And we always offer the disclaimer that the district, based on the COVID-19 outbreaks and the health guidance that's current, that we may have to revert to a previous phase. And on the next slide, each day at 3:00 p.m., we have our pandemic specialist, Dr. Quentin Fretwell, and our health and wellness subcommittee. They are monitoring the data and send us what we call the daily alert. And so today's alert was quite alarming. We have moved quickly from our last board meeting, which we did the presentation on October 19th, we were at 122. And now we are November 5th, 2020, the 3:00 reading was 201 cases per 100,000 residents for the 14-day average. So this declares us in the high category, the high spread. And now I will shift to Dr. Moore Sanders, who will share what our district will do. And this is more recent guidance that we've added to our COVID-19 plan. Dr. Moore Sanders.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. What I wanted to do is share with you some information regarding how the district is responding to the reporting of cases. We know that there were many questions that parents had, so that if we do return to a face-to-face setting, how are cases handled within the district? So what we wanted to share with you is that any cases that are reported to us or reported to the district leader, those referrals come to our DeKalb County COVID-19 district health team. That health team, which is led by our lead nurse, Ms. Joanne Harris, we work with her very diligently, as well as with the Department of Public Health. We have an infectious disease protocol that we follow within our district. And so what happens is we refer those cases and information over to the Department of Public Health. The Department of Public Health provides us general guidance, which we share with those individuals who have been exposed or those individuals who have positive cases. So we don't do anything ourselves, but provide the guidance from the Board of Health. The Board of Health also does what is known as contact tracing. So the Board of Health will contact individuals who have come in contact with persons who may have been exposed or persons who may have tested positive. And they will also provide them with that guidance. And what happens is the Board of Health has issued guidance about quarantine. And typically individuals who test positive or are exposed, we ask them to do a 14-day quarantine per the direction of the Board of Health. And the Board of Health does follow up with individuals. They check on them, they ask them how they're doing, they check for symptoms, and if there's more significant cases, they will provide them with that guidance to check with their healthcare provider. So when it comes to a school closure, once we decide to come back face-to-face, again, we report any cases of exposure to the Board of Health. We collaborate with them, who are one of our main partners, but we also collaborate with the Department of Public Health so that they are the ones that truly offer the guidance to the district on whether or not we should close or shut down an area. And we, again, follow our infectious disease protocol. So that is how we typically take care of cases. I know that this was some concerns for some parents, especially if their children come back to school. They wanted to know what happens if a child is exposed or a teacher is exposed. So this is what we do, but our primary guidance for handling cases comes from the Department of Public Health. Ms. Stephanie? I think you're on mute.
Thank you so much, Dr. Moore Sanders. Parents, this is where you can help us as we shape our plan. It is really important to the district that we hear from you. We know that we've issued many different surveys. We had the reopening survey, and then we had where you could answer as a parent, you could answer as an employee. And what we decided once we received that data is that we really need to hear from our stakeholder groups directly. So we had a staff opportunity where they could talk to us, and now we have the parent opportunity. And the parents' opportunity is really to help us plan as a district. And so parents, what we want to share is that as of today, at 3:00 p.m., we had 50,005 responses from families. And this is not everyone. We want to give all families an opportunity to respond. And if you look at the data, you can see that 56.25% or 28,126 families have selected distance remote learning in the event we transition to a phase. And then we also have 43.75% that have chosen to take advantage of hybrid. And that's 21,879 responses. And the chart further gives you a snapshot as to what the grade levels are choosing. You can see that in elementary schools, our families, it's pretty close. 12,403 have selected distance remote, but 11,157 have selected hybrid. So it's really close. But we began to see interesting trends with our middle and high school families. Our middle school families, there are more requests for distance remote, and in high school, it's almost a 50% difference. So we are asking that all families have the opportunity to respond, and we have extended the window. This will be our third extension. It now will be open until November the 12th. And so we have tried to communicate through school messenger, text messaging, all of the social media opportunities, but we want to hear from you. And I also want to share as a family, if you answered this back when it first opened and you have a change of heart, you can certainly do it. You can do the actual survey again, because the schoolhouse will receive the data with the timestamp, so they will know that this family has changed the decision and the date that they changed the decision, because we want to plan for you. We want to plan for your child. So again, this is how you can help us shape our plan. And now we will move into the readiness areas. And so our first team member will be Mr. Noah Maloof in operations.
Thank you, Ms. Stepney. Operations has been working diligently since the middle of the summer to get our schools prepared for the eventual return of students. The biggest area of concern, and rightfully so, that most people have is around our HVAC and environment. We've worked very hard to get all of our air conditioning units and ventilation adjusted, and to increase ventilation and fresh air into the systems in accordance with CDC and industry recommendation. This has been done to levels that are appropriate for each system. We don't want to overload the systems, because the most important part is that they're working. We've adjusted these systems to increase this fresh air, and have increased our level of filters to the highest level of filtration that is possible in each of the units. This is in every classroom. This is in every modular unit. There's a lot of concerns about, did you get all of the units? And the answer is yes. We are performing these filter changes on a quarterly basis, and we have also stepped up our preventive maintenance, which includes cleaning the coils, cleaning the drip pans, making sure that all of the piping and plumbing going to them is clean and maintained. We also have made corrective maintenance priority for HVAC and plumbing on this. In the environment part, outside of the ventilation and plumbing, we've also been working on installing plexiglass partitions at places where we have public-facing workspaces, such as reception desks. We've also been providing hand sanitizer and dispensers throughout schools, and is focused on high traffic areas. We took a visit to schools yesterday, and it was pretty hard to find one place where you couldn't get some hand sanitizer offered to you, or up on a wall, or in a public space. We're also working to install bottle fill stations in the schools. This will be after the next Board of Education meeting. We will begin that procurement process and installation. We're also monitoring the flushing of water systems throughout the week to make sure that we prevent any possible contamination from stagnant water. While the perception is that there's nobody in our buildings, we actually have core staff in our buildings and have had them there for a while. And this is part of their weekly maintenance, to make sure that on a daily basis, they're going from station to station, flushing water, making sure that ice machines have been changed, that the kitchens, since we're doing a lot of food prep, are also pushing a lot of water through our systems. And in addition to that, we're also providing signage to the schools to support good safety practices, such as reminders about masks, reminders about washing your hands, reminders about which direction to walk down certain halls, and to stay to the right, and things like that, to increase our social distancing. We'll go to the next slide. Transportation, we've had many questions about transportation. We are targeting a reduction of students on each of the bus through our hybrid scheduling, and discussing this with other districts across the nation. This has been a very successful way to basically have one child per seat on average in your buses. We will be operating our regular bus schedules. They are posted online, and we have made adjustments based on our current expectations with ridership. We also will be requiring students to wear face coverings. One of the things that you will hear us continue to say is the face coverings, the mask, wearing the masks are the most important way to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. We are increasing our ventilation on the buses as appropriate, using windows and air conditioning systems. And we're also going to be transporting all children from the bus stop to the school. We do request assistance from you, the parents and guardians at the bus stops. We ask that you help us with distancing and making sure that your kid gets on the bus with a face covering, making sure that they are ready to go when we get to the bus stops so we can keep our routes on time. We've also provided guidance for our local custodians in the schoolhouse, cleaning, and this happens prior to students getting to school, after students being in classrooms, and all of our cleaning practices and guidance has been aligned with the CDC and the Department of Health has in recommendations. Mostly this is focused on wiping down all high-touch areas with disinfectants, and these are all registered disinfectants with the CDC and Board of Health kill list for COVID-19. We also have protocols for disinfecting classrooms and large spaces on a daily and even hourly basis. And we also have guidance on how to make sure that custodians are on regular schedules to get into restrooms, to get into cafeterias, and to get into the other common areas in the schoolhouse. With that, I will turn it over to Mr. Charles Burbridge, our new Chief Financial Officer, for his portion of the presentation. And we really appreciate your collaboration in working towards getting our students back into school safely.
Thank you very much, Mr. Maloof. It's a pleasure being here this evening. In many regards, Mr. Maloof and the superintendent have teed up this finance discussion well, because we've spoken about collaboration, and really it's even though a lot of the attention is paid toward the impact on spending and revenue and how the adverse impact of the pandemic on our revenue and expenditures, it's really not just a one-way street here. And so the flexibility that the superintendent spoke of really comes into play in that we need to monitor the situation and look at what the options are without being reactive and overreactive. And that's what we're doing. We're watching the enrollment data, we're watching the lunch data, we're watching the bus, our responses across the district, monitoring these carefully. Fortunately, we're not in this alone. You know, many districts are facing the same issues, and so state and federal authorities are also watching these situations. So while it's one thing to say that there are a lot of downward pressures on the district in terms of revenue and sometimes upward pressures based on expenses for personal protection equipment and cleaning supplies, it's really a mixed bag, and so we're paying attention to it. We are evaluating options when we need to. We're working collaboratively across the district with schoolhouse leaders to really make sure that we provide the best education and outcomes we can under the situation without unduly burdening the resources of the district. So that's what this response is really getting to. There are a lot of moving parts. Some of the parts, budget years are kind of independent of each other in some regards. You start new each year, but to the extent that some of these conditions persist, and there are impacts in the out years that we'll have to prepare for those as we start putting together the FY22 budget and use appropriate assumptions in assessing our resources and the need for spending in the out years. But really, flexibility and collaboration are the watchwords for making sure that we get through this situation together. And that's probably a good place to be, is together.
Thank you, Mr. Burbridge. You are exactly right. It is, as our superintendent always states, it is good to be in community with those who keep teaching and learning at the center. And so we appreciate your assistance, sir, as we move through the next few months into next year. Next, we will hear from Mr. Brown, our Chief of Staff, as well as our Interim Chief of Human Resources.
Thank you, Ms. Stepney, and good evening, everyone. All right, we identified a couple of HR or really one main area of specific concern for parents as it relates to HR and instruction, and that would be with substitute teachers. All right, and one scenario would be, what will happen if a teacher is not in place and subs are not available? All right, schoolhouse leaders, namely the principals, will have the ability to implement effective strategies, such as utilizing non-homeroom teachers and support staff as fill-in teachers until substitutes are located. All right. Another scenario would be if a substitute is needed for a teacher who tests positive, who will secure the substitute? And the district will ensure that substitutes are made available when requested, and school leaders will secure those substitutes once they're made available. And then the rationale that could inform a possible scenario includes if there is one teacher who teaches a specific subject and that teacher is granted permission to telework by HR, then what would the students in that class, who choose to return to face-to-face instruction once the district enters that phase of the reentry plan, have by way of instruction? And HR will work collaboratively with school leadership to identify subject matter substitutes to ensure that students are provided a full and quality education. So with that, I now give it back to you, Ms. Stephanie.
Mr. Brown, I know you see my grin because it has been a pleasure working with the Human Resources team, because we have been responding to the needs of the schoolhouse, and our principals have stated to us, what they need, and Human Resources, they have been most responsive to make sure that we are ready to pivot to any type of face-to-face in-person learning. And so, Mr. Brown, thank you so much. We will now move to teaching and learning. And so we're really excited about the opportunities that are before us. And I want to use a word that our superintendent told us about at the very beginning. She said, there's no blueprint. And what we'd like to say in this area, she's exactly right. We have not had to do this. Sure, we've had experience with virtual learning, our inclement weather plan, but now our teachers are rising to the occasion and doing something very unique. And so we have two schools of learning that I would like to share with you tonight. Hybrid learning, that's a term that is found in the Intent to Learn survey, where we defined it for parents. And with hybrid learning, it simply means that there will be face-to-face learning blended with some days at home where the student is participating in class virtually. So they will still have face-to-face and distance remote together. And then we will also have students whose families have chosen to continue with distance remote learning. And so many parents in the opportunity, the window last week or so, they started asking questions about how would this look? What would this experience be like for my child? And so we are doing active research. It is now called or referred to as the concurrent classroom. And what that means is that a teacher will be teaching simultaneously, the hybrid group, as well as those who opt to continue with distance remote learning as the permanent way of learning for them. And so we have worked together to make sure that we are giving our staff members the professional learning that they need. And we are working with our principals, with our teachers. We have advisory groups because we know that they are absolutely the end users and we need to get them the information that they need to be successful. And so we are working to make sure that we're able to continue to teach live using our tools, the Microsoft Teams, Zoom, or even Google Meet. Also, I want to share with families that as you make your decision, remember I talked about us planning based on your decisions, we are going to take all of the families who have opted for hybrid learning and put your child in what we refer to as a cohort. And the student will be in a cohort of other students, and we will make exceptions for families that have students perhaps with different last names. So we can work with the family and the children can go to school on the same day at the same school. And so we felt like that was something coming from some of our stakeholders. We needed to make sure that we could help a family with understanding who's going to school and when. And so we're working to build those cohorts based on the data that you are providing. And also we are, again, working on our professional learning for our staff members. On the next slide, I would like to share some things that will shift for us. We built what we call sample schedules at the very beginning of the year. And the sample schedules were based on research, what other states were doing, and we put our plan together. The sample schedules allowed all schools to use those as the minimum required number of minutes to work with their regional superintendents if they wanted to modify the instructional schedule. And so our schools, we have some that have already done that and they've increased the instructional time. But what we are committed to doing is when we shift to phase 3, we will have a full instructional day. And many parents are concerned about the number of minutes that a child has for instruction. So I would like to share what we mean when we say direct instruction. If your child has a 55-minute class period, most times the class period is broken into 3 parts. We call it in the educational world an opening, a work period, and a closing. And so what was really important for us was to make sure that our teachers had direct instruction time with the students. And so on average, a teacher may have direct instruction for 30 minutes. And so that was our minimum requirement that we as a district set forth to help our schools, to ensure that the students had the minimum of 30 minutes. Now, teachers have continued with independent work, with group work, where the assignments continue. So right now, many of our principals are working with their PACs, their PTAs, their teachers, and revisiting their schedules. And so you can anticipate that there may be some shifting, increased instructional minutes. Also, we are working to make sure that our teachers are prepared for what is to come. We know that they have to interact with the students in the classroom space. And so we have capped our class sizes to 12 to 16. Our operations team, they provided guidance to the schoolhouse, and we looked at different layouts. We looked at tables, we looked at desks to make sure we could offer that guide to the schoolhouse. And looking at our square footage, we felt that it was best to be 12 to 16 as the class teacher-student ratio in order to make sure that we're able to socially distance. We're also going to ask parents to assist in this area. It's really important. Our CDC has recommended that we limit the use of community supplies in classrooms. And so if you have an elementary student, our early learners are accustomed to sharing. Sharing is one of the features that we really pride ourselves on teaching children at a young age, that, you know, we should share. And so we have to put that in perspective now, because they will not be able to use the classroom bin of open crayons. They will not be able to grab a pencil from just the open container. And so teachers are working with strategies on how will we do that. And so I'll just give you an example. With the pre-K and the K students, we have purchased those gallon bags so that we can put the students' resources in the bags and give it to the student. But that is something that we are thinking through as a district, because we want to just limit the use of community items in the classroom. Also, it's important for us to develop routines. And so when we shift to the next phase, families, I will be honest, it will be like the first day of school for everyone, because it will be a new experience. And so we have to help develop those daily routines where students know what social distancing means in the classroom, in the hallways, in the restroom, and wherever they are in the schoolhouse. What does that look like? How do I go to the bathroom? When do I go? And then also we have to work with our staff and our students on daily routines for cleaning. It will be important for all of us to note that at my assigned desk, I'm responsible for that space while I'm in class. So I need to make sure it's cleaned and left as I found it. And we know, having young learners, sometimes that's not the case. They leave behind water bottles, they leave behind books or paper. So we'll have to put into our schedule the time for those daily routines to help transition from one class to the other. And so with teaching and learning, we have partners all throughout the district, because again, as Mr. Burbidge stated, we are better together. And so the next colleague, we have been together for quite some time, because she has been instrumental in making sure that our students have the devices that are needed. So Ms. Davis.
Thank you, Ms. Stepney. We definitely have been together. Good evening, everyone. I would like to start by sharing that 97% of our students have been able to log into our virtual learning environment that is provided by the district since the first day of school, which is August 17, 2020. Our virtual learning environment consists of many tools that our teachers are using to virtually connect with our students via our student portal called Launchpad. That's the orange rocket that your students click on to log in the morning. These tools include Verge, they can include Microsoft Office with PowerPoint, Word, Excel, Teams, Google applications for education, docs, slides, anything, Infinite Campus, anything that teachers are utilizing with our students to facilitate virtual learning. So a lot of progress has definitely been made with regards to providing access to our virtual learning environment. We also know that connectivity and access to devices has been a challenge for some of our students, and the district has worked hard to provide devices and internet connectivity options for those students needing assistance. If you have questions or you need assistance, please reach out to your school and they'll reach out to us, and we'll definitely continue to provide you with that assistance. But that's another area, definitely a progress that the district has had as we move forward in these uncharted waters of virtual learning. Although we are still utilizing a remote or virtual learning option at this time, the district still has to work hard at preparing for when we do return to the building, and we're utilizing our district's infrastructure. We continuously monitor, we as in the Information Technology Division, we continuously monitor our district's infrastructure, our performance, and the capacity of our infrastructure. We use several metrics, and we use these metrics to determine what type of enhancements we need to make, as well as how much capacity we need to prepare for. So we definitely are monitoring our network and preparing the network for when our students return. One major and very critical enhancement that we are making to the network is our student guest environment and guest logon. And so when students return, they will be able to log in and bring their own device, and they will be able to log into our network and use that device that they're using at home and bring it back and forth. So that is a huge enhancement for our environment that we have made to ensure that it's configured and tested and prepared for our students to return to school. Monitoring, analyzing, and utilizing our network environment is an ongoing process for us, and we continue to do that work. So I want to make sure that everyone understood, so when we do return, we will have that capacity. Another area that we know there will be a need for are the technology tools that will support hybrid learning, the hybrid learning environment. These tools include webcams, microphones, monitors to extend the visibility for our teachers so they can see the students and what they're actually teaching, as well as several other tools. The district is committed to identifying the most effective and useful tools for our students. We're working on this with our teachers, identifying these tools that's going to assist them to assist your children with the best hybrid and virtual learning environment for them. Lastly, IT continues to refine and expand technology support to provide necessary assistance to both students and teachers. Students should always start with the school if they need technology assistance. An escalation plan is in place, and the school knows how to notify the IT division should assistance is needed. However, we do realize that sometimes that can take time, and we want to empower you with information as our partners in this endeavor, so that you can solve some of the issues on your own, because many times you can. You just need to know where the information is. So we have created a resource that you can use, and it is our virtual learning support page. And this resource is an online resource, and it provides an overview of our virtual learning tools, quick tips, as well as videos on how to use these tools. And we provide updates as it pertains to our virtual learning support for the school district. You can see the URL at the bottom of this page, and that will take you to that page of all of those resources. Many times when we go to assist parents or go to assist students, we'll refer to this page, we'll take them there and show them where, we're walking the steps that we're walking them through. And we always get, we didn't know that was there. So please jot down that URL and utilize that URL as we move forward. So these are all the different areas in terms of technology and how the district is trying to ensure that this is as successful of a journey for us as possible. So at this time, I want to turn the presentation back over to Dr. Moore Sanders, and she will provide guidance, information on mental health. Thank you.
So hello again, parents. And I want to say that we have received lots of questions and inquiries surrounding mental health. We know that some of our homes have been much more stressful with the children being there. We know that our children are struggling because they are not in school, and some of them are not with their friends. They're not able to connect. We had questions from many parents to even ask us, did we care? Do we care that our students have mental health? Are we caring that they're struggling with mental health? And so what I wanted to do was to share with you what we are doing within the district, because there are a number of supports that are available at each of the schools within the district. We've had to pivot quite a bit with our staff to ensure that we brought them up to speed so that they could at least address the concerns that were coming to them from the students as well as from parents. So I want to take you through what we have within the district and what the various departments are doing. So with our school counselors, our counselors have established some virtual office hours, and those hours are for you to connect with them, to let them know if you need some assistance with your child or to address some concerns that you have at home. Our counselors are also doing emotional check-ins with our students. They can remote into the classrooms, do check-ins. If the teachers who are teaching are noticing that there is something going on with the child, then they notify that counselor, the counselor follows up and checks in on that child. Our counselors are also providing some support to our students using mindful activities. And all that means is checking in with them to see, how are you doing today? Are you mindful? Are you paying attention? Is there something that is going on with you? So they are providing those activities just to try to make sure that our students are active and ready to learn. Our counselors also embed social emotional contents with their career lessons that they're doing with the schools, and they're offering some tips through their counselors newsletter. Many of them are providing these newsletters for parents, and they're putting tips in the newsletters to just help parents cope with the stresses at home. Within our nurses and our health areas, again, I mentioned this earlier, but they are monitoring the COVID-19 cases that come into the district, but our nurses are also helping to monitor our students who have medical or 504 concerns, and they are available to you to ask questions if you need some assistance in those areas. And if there are concerns, they are collaborating and making outside referrals to address those needs. Many of you may not be aware that all of your schools do have a school psychologist. They are not full-time in a school, but each of them serve about 3 schools. But many of them are holding parenting workshops to address mental health concerns. They can also provide individual and group counseling. If you have concerns about your child and want them to participate in a group, I know there are some groups that are going on that are addressing friendships and decision-making. They are addressing anxiety. All you would need to do is to contact your school. You can talk to the counselor and let them know, and that psychologist will get in touch with you to set up time to meet with your child. They're also providing individual check-ins, checking in with the teachers if teachers are noticing concerns about students in a classroom. So that's another way that we are addressing mental health. And we are working with our teachers, because that's another area that we needed to strengthen, to make sure that our teachers know how to recognize when a child is in distress. So we have put together many modules to work with our teachers so that they can identify signs of anxiety, signs of stress, when a student does not feel like doing work, when a student may be crying or just feeling overwhelmed. So we're providing those tools to our teachers through professional learning. Next slide. We also have topics that are going on within the schools where our social workers and psychologists are addressing parent concerns and on topics such as anxiety, such as stress, even suicidal ideation. I want parents to know that we do provide training to our staff members, and we work with our students on just recognizing what those signs are so that we can intercede when we can to ensure that those families and those students get the right referrals. Our social workers are also providing webinars at the school level that many parents are taking advantage of. So if you are not aware of any of these services in your schools, please contact your school. Ask to speak to your support person, and they can let you know what things are going on. We are also addressing those parents who need additional resources. So if you are struggling to have supplies at home or any books for your kids to read, just leisurely things, let us know, because that is a resource that we provide. And I wanted to make sure parents knew that we do have a link in Verge. And we placed that link in Verge back in May, because we wanted a way for our students when they began to log in. If they are overwhelmed, if they need assistance, if they want someone to talk to, they can type that in. And that information goes to our school social worker. It's managed by several of our district coordinators, and they in turn notify the school. I will share with you that we have definitely gotten some very interesting responses. We've gotten children who told us that their Chromebook wasn't working. We've gotten responses where a child said, my brother in my home is hitting me and I want to hit him back, but my mom says I can't. And so we have followed up with the children on those. We've also gotten some referrals from children when they were feeling unsafe. So I wanted you to know that we do have those resources that are available within the district where our students can let us know if they need some assistance. And we also have multiple ways for our staff as well as our parents to let us know if they are in need some assistance. What I will share as well is that we do have some mental health service providers that are partnering with us. And so parents, check with your school to see if that resource is available within the district. We are working on extended partnerships so that at some point we want to be able to provide additional mental health to all of our schools. I want to share with you as well is that our Department of Parent and Family Engagement has been holding town hall meetings, and those meetings have been well attended by our families. We have provided information to our parents on trauma. We've talked about how do you take care of yourself when your cup is so full. So we are continuing to offer services along the way. We are collaborating with mental health providers who come in to provide tips, and we will have a catalog that will be offered throughout the year. Next slide. So one of the things that I wanted to share with our parents is that this is a great way to stay connected and to stay informed. I want to share with our parents as well, please ensure that your information with your schools is up to date, because we do use many, many, many ways to connect with you. We know that some of you like to receive information via text. We know that we send information out through multiple means, but we don't want families to miss information because there's a change of a phone number or some things within your household that the school does not know. And right now, as you can see, this is a how to stay informed. So please utilize this link to stay informed with our district. And I would also share with you, if there's anything we can do additionally, please let us know. We know that in the home, parents, you are the first line of defense for your children. We know that you are seeing multiple things that we may not see. All of us are getting through this time together, and we're hoping that we all come out very strong on the other side. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Ms. Stephanie.
Thank you so much, Dr. Moore-Sanders. To all of our families, I want to reiterate one point that Dr. Moore-Sanders shared. We are having our Family Engagement Week, November the 16th through the 21st. Please mark your calendars. We have sessions planned for parents that go anywhere from social emotional support for the student, for the family, to how can I help my child navigate in this virtual landscape. So there are many, many different classes, and hats off to our Family Engagement, the hub area, because they have been doing family classes since early August. And in early August, they reached out to many areas in our district and said, what are those things that you think parents want to know? And so all of us had an opportunity to throw out those topics and to collaborate to build the session. So we want to say thank you, that there will be so many opportunities. Families, please share it with your friends, your neighbors, and encourage them to sign up. The classes begin in the mornings and go all the way to 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening, simply because we want to make sure we're respectful of your time. And some families have night shifts. They want to do early morning classes. Some families work during the day and they want to do evening classes. So we have stretched ourselves, and we will go from early morning until 7 o'clock p.m. because we want to reach you and support you. So thank you in advance for signing up. We look forward to seeing you in those virtual classes. And more importantly, so we can give you information to continue to support your learner at home. At this time, we will transition to questions. And the way that we have organized the town hall is that we look at all of our questions and we try to find those common threads. And so in the PowerPoint presentation, we lifted what we saw were common threads that many families, posed a question about. But now there are some questions that may not have been as popular or as repeated as many times. And so our staff members, we're going to extract those questions, and we will have an opportunity to paraphrase questions and provide an answer. And so you will have an opportunity to hear from Dr. Fraser tonight, who is our Associate Superintendent in the Office of Accountability. And she will be joined by Mrs. Pearch, who's our Region 1 Superintendent, Mr. Arnold, who's Region 2 Superintendent, Dr. Tart, who's Region 3, Dr. Michelle Jones, who's Region 4, Dr. Trisilla Weaver, Region 5, Mrs. Pamela Benford, Region 6, Dr. Swanson, Region 7, and of course, Dr. Morris Sanders. But what I want to share with you is, as we shared at the very beginning, this is the first, we hope, of many more to come. But our regional superintendents, as our superintendent organizes a parent town hall, we are expected as a team to go deeper in our own areas. So who you're going to hear from are the principal supervisors. And so they will work with the principals in their region so that we can have a more intimate parent town hall, and we can address, for example, you may say to us, I really want to see what it looks like at Rockbridge Elementary School. The district talked high level, but I want to see what it looks like. So that gives Dr. Jones an opportunity to give you a snapshot of the hallway, to let you see inside of the classroom. And so our regional superintendents, we will be working together for our parent town halls, and they will take place after Thanksgiving, because we want you to be able to attend those November 16th through November 21st sessions. And so we will have our parent town halls beginning right after Thanksgiving, November 30th through December 11th. And so look forward to getting that information. And Dr. Fraser, you have our first question.
Thank you, Ms. Stepney. And I also want to thank all of our parents for submitting their questions. I have 2 questions that I will respond to this evening. The first question: it has taken over 2 weeks for teachers to administer MAP testing in our elementary school, resulting in little live instruction via Zoom. Why does the district plan to repeat this testing in January? The fall MAP window opened on September 21st and will close on November 11th. Schools have the autonomy to develop a schedule within their schools that works best for them. As you know, we do not have student data since last winter because the spring Georgia milestones were canceled. The purpose of the fall MAP testing is to obtain up-to-date diagnostic data and measure learning loss. Once students complete the MAP assessment, teachers will review reports, analyze the data, and set instructional goals for our students. The winter MAP will be used to obtain the same diagnostic and growth data, but in addition, the district is currently planning to utilize this winter assessment window as a screener for gifted and other program evaluations. The next question I have you tried to do the MAP testing in a virtual environment? It doesn't work. Well, this is our first time administering the MAP assessment in a virtual environment. The assessment department has developed and trained schools on very specific procedures for remote testing. But as with any online assessment, there will be technical difficulties that we experience, and these technical difficulties will happen whether or not we're in face-to-face or in a virtual setting. But as a result, MAP has created a quick start guide and troubleshooting guide to assist test examiners and test coordinators with administering the assessment remotely. When a technical incident does occur, the MAP system identifies where the student's test is affected and will allow the child the opportunity to answer the same question when the student is logged back into the system to continue testing. The Assessment Administration Department developed a NWEA MAP page for parents to assist them with logins, accessing the MAP assessment, and other pertinent MAP processes. This page contains many documents, videos, and instructions to assist our parents, schools, and students. So as we navigate through this unprecedented time, please know that our goal is to always do what's in the best interest of our students. This is our very first time, again, administering this assessment in a virtual environment, so there will be some lessons learned. If parents are experiencing difficulties, we ask that you please contact your local school principal or your local school test coordinator. And as we near the close of the MAP administration window, we will work with our school leaders to understand the challenges that our schools have had with our remote process. And information gained will help the Assessment Administration Department plan for future assessments. And now I will turn it over to Mrs. Pearch.
So good evening, everyone, and thank you again for joining us this evening. I have two questions as well, and my first one reads, about kids who are not logging in daily? What about all of the families whose children and/or parents don't speak English well? How are they getting logged in and learning? So principals, teachers, school staff are working to identify any student who is not logging in, and also the students who are not fully engaged. So that might be a student who logs in and then kind of disappears after 5 minutes. They're using their local school resources, the counselors, the social workers, to reach out to assist those students with logging in, and then also how to use the various platforms that the schools are using. Teachers are offering additional support sessions, tutorials, etc. after school and on Wednesdays. As you know, Wednesdays are designated for meetings, but then also for small group sessions, tutorials, teachers providing some extra assistance. So this also includes assistance for our English language learners. And schools are sending communication to the families in the various languages needed by the school based on what the school languages are. And then bilingual staff are also reaching out personally to the families to provide assistance. The second question, what plans are in place for the safety of our children to return to school? What do principals have in hand in terms of guidelines to safely reopen, such as arrival, dismissal, isolation room, and what supplies are being sent to the schools? So principals are working closely with the regional superintendents, with their local school leadership teams, teacher teams, and also division heads at the district to ensure a safe return for both students and staff. Principals have been provided with a checklist that continues to be modified. As Ms. Stepney mentioned, we have a COVID think tank. So principals have a checklist where they can cover every aspect of a school day, such as the arrival, the dismissal, restroom breaks, lunch transitions, and then also the method of instruction, virtual versus face-to-face. So actually yesterday, several Board of Ed members, the superintendent, and numerous cabinet members, we experienced something called a day in the life, and we visited 3 different schools to walk in the footsteps of a child, exactly what it's like getting off the bus and with staff greeting us. And so that was really a meaningful experience, helpful for us to go back. I mean, we had to have lunch, we had to have restroom breaks, we had lunch, and we really experienced what the students will experience. So that was super helpful to then bring back to the COVID think tank, which is a group that meets about 2 or 3 times a week at least, to cover and just dig deeper into every detail of what are we missing. And it was something as simple yesterday. I think the kids should go through the cafeteria line a different direction, and that would be less passing of each other in interaction. So again, that COVID think tank just helps us prepare at a district level to then work with principals and then schools to be 100% prepared when we open our doors. And then in answer to the cleaning supplies, all schools have 2 months worth currently of cleaning supplies and disinfectants. Thank you, and I will turn it over to Mr. Arnold.
Thank you, Ms. Pierce. So I have 2 questions that I'm going to take a few moments to answer. The first question is, while Facebook groups are very popular, what is the appropriate platform for parents to raise concerns to district leadership, especially when principals are under transition? So whenever you do have a concern, the district wants to try and have the matter resolved at the level closest to the concern. This usually begins at your neighborhood school with the teacher, assistant principal, and principal. However, when those concerns cannot be resolved there, or perhaps are matters beyond the schoolhouse and more tied to the central operations of the district, the best way to have those concerns addressed can be through your regional superintendent. If you're not sure who your regional superintendent is, you can go to the district's homepage, click on the leadership tab at the top, and then click on regional superintendents on the left-hand side of the page. There's an email link that you can use to send your questions and concerns to your regional superintendent. It's also worth noting that on the district's homepage, we do have a scrolling banner that specifically addresses the district's reopening plans. If you click on that banner, you'll be taken to a web page that provides multiple entry points to additional web pages that focus on student support, community partnership, technology access, parent and family engagement, and so forth, and what we discussed earlier in the presentation. We encourage community members to access this page to get assistance with questions they may have around reopening. So the second question that I had was, how do I, as a small business owner, continue to keep my doors open to my children? Are the teachers and board members using the virus as an excuse to make the same income while doing less work? So without knowing the background and dynamics of someone's business, it would be difficult and probably not appropriate to offer guidance on how to address those concerns with the business. But I do want to spend a few moments responding to the second question. So as you probably heard throughout the presentation, any decision that the district makes relative to return to face-to-face instruction will be based upon data from public health agencies and will ensure that the district's priority, the safety and well-being of our students and staff, is not impacted. Since this global pandemic caused the district to move to virtual instruction, I can say without hesitation, and with 29 years of experience myself, that our teachers and educators are working harder than they ever have before. Each day, our classroom teachers give everything that they have to teach every one of our students. Now, if you do have a concern with a specific teacher, I would reference my earlier response and ask that your concerns be brought up with the school's principal, and as a starting point. However, since the school year began, principals in the district central office have received more complimentary emails from parents and community members regarding the work and efforts of our schoolhouse employees than we have in past school years. The teachers and employees of the DeKalb County School District are working harder than they ever have before to provide an outstanding education to our students, and we are extremely proud of their efforts. With that being said, Dr. Tart, I believe you have some questions, so I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Arnold. Again, welcome parents, and thank you for your questions. I have the opportunity to answer questions from the operations department. So our first question is, will masks be a requirement, and will proper wearing of masks by students and staff be enforced? Absolutely. Wearing masks has shown to be the most effective way to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. And so we highly encourage all families and staff members to wear a mask as they travel throughout their various homes and as they travel to school. Again, so yes, please, please, please wear a mask. It is very, very important. And of course, the schoolhouse will work collaboratively with every student and staff member to ensure and enforce that they are wearing the mask and doing all that we can to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. And the regional offices look forward to helping to support you in this endeavor. Let's keep our schools safe. The second question, the Center of Disease Control and Prevention's guidance for safely reopening schools also advises ensuring that ventilation works properly, in addition to increasing outdoor air circulation when possible. It's imperative that air conditioning units and heating units have adequate filtration and high quality filters are used. Where does the district stand on ensuring this is happening at the schools, particularly those teachers and staff that are at an increased risk for contracting COVID-19? We're concerned about all of our staff members, and we'll do all that we can to help mitigate the spread of COVID-19. So our facilities and operations department has been working very diligently to repair and address all HVAC systems across the district. We've adjusted the HVAC systems based on the recommendations from the CDC and industry standards. Now, keep in mind, all systems are not the same and have different age dates. But again, we have increased the airflow throughout each and every unit throughout our district, and we'll continue to address work orders as they come about. We want to stop and pause and thank all of our facilities managers and operations department for continually working through our schools, as well as our principals and schoolhouse leaders, bringing that to our attention so that we can properly address those and very quickly. So again, the operations department will continue to change air filters on a quarterly basis. Again, our operations department are currently changing filters as early as 5 in the morning all the way to the end of the school day, and having daily monitor checks to make sure that airflow is indeed traveling throughout our building. So thank you for the questions, and we look forward to more suggestions as we move forward. At this time, I'll pass it to Dr. Michelle Jones. Michelle.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tartt. I have 2 questions. And the first question is, are stakeholders allowed to answer DCSD surveys as many times as they want, thus skewing the data about returning to in-person learning? As you heard earlier in the presentation from Ms. Stacy Stepney, we do encourage parents to take the survey to accurately represent what their intentions are for returning. However, we do recognize that some parents may have determined that they want to change their mind. So it does allow for a parent to record their response accurately with the most current date timestamp. What you will also know is that principals have been given a specific login information to access their school's data to determine which families have decided to return in person and which families will remain hybrid. And they will use that to set up their schedules and in preparation for face-to-face and the hybrid model. The second question, and the district starts to do the reopening plans, and then all of a sudden it goes to 101, will the plans keep coming to a hold for just a few cases? I'm very proud to say that we have been consistent with our message, consistent with our plan, and therefore we will continue to monitor the numbers daily. We will continue to report that at every board meeting, and we will monitor the phases based on our data. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Dr. Trisilla Weaver.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. And for our parents who are posting questions in the chat, please note that we have content experts that are answering those questions as they are being posted. And I have 2 questions that I would like to answer that our parents submitted. The first question is, while this question may seem premature, given that our students have not returned to face-to-face instruction in the classroom, are contingency plans being discussed for the class of 2021 graduation in light of COVID-19? And the answer to that is yes. Graduation contingency plans are being discussed. Please note that the decision will not be made in isolation. We will have a committee that consists of principals and senior sponsors, and they will work to explore all possible options. Just as a reminder, let's abide by any restrictions that have been set by our governor. And our second question, and this is from a family with elementary school age students, and they are interested in returning to an in-person learning. And they are asking, will the district consider an option for families in this situation? And again, the answer is yes. We have considered that option. That is why it is extremely important for our parents to complete the survey. The survey can be found on our district web page, and the survey ends on November the 12th. So again, yes, we are considering those options, and we want our parents to be informed about that option and to fill out that survey. And now I would turn it over to Mrs. Benford.
Thank you, Dr. Weaver. And good evening, parents. Thank you for joining us. My first question, if I wanted my kids to return to in-person learning and heard from them that protocols aren't being followed or they simply are no longer comfortable, can I change my mind and have my kids go back to virtual learning? Is there a grace period for this? We want all of our students to be safe at school. Upon our return to face-to-face instruction, safety protocols such as face coverings and social distancing will be in place with the expectation that all persons in our school buildings follow them. But parents, no matter the reason, you may opt to resume distance or remote learning at any time by completing a change of intent to return form. Next question. When the district decides to reopen physical schools for students, will students have the option to continue remote learning if COVID is still present but lower than the threshold for returning? Will remote students get the same level of attention and class time as in-person students? Parents, you will have the option for your students to continue learning remotely even when we begin phase 3 of our re-entry plan. Teachers will be teaching in a concurrent learning environment, so our students will be getting the same instruction and support, whether they are learning face-to-face or learning remotely. And now I'll pass the mantle to Dr. Rodney Swanson.
Thank you, Ms. Benford, and thank you, parents, for sharing a little time with us this evening. I have 2 questions. The first question, how will the district support families who do not have devices? And the second part of that question, and if a student does not have an opportunity to turn in assignments, how was that handled in emergency situations? So the IT department is working with schools to provide devices and hotspots to all students who are in need. So please contact your principals and share that information if you are in need of a hotspot or a device. The second part of that question is, the answer is going to be, with the power outage that recently happened, and of course students could not connect, could not be online, the schools will work with parents and students to make sure that students have an opportunity to make up those assignments. The key for all of our students is mastery content. We want to make sure that they master all the content that is being taught. The second question, how will teachers teach face-to-face and hybrid students simultaneously? And the IT department is working with schools and principals to make sure that resources are available in terms of cameras that can be placed on the screens in the classrooms to ensure that when the teacher is teaching in-person students, they can also reach those students who are online. Thank you very much for your questions. And next we will have Dr. Moore Sanders.
Unmute again. So good evening again. Most of the questions that came my way from parents centered around mental health and what supports were available. So I addressed most of them during the presentation. But there are 2 questions that I would like to answer for you. One, parents wanted to know, what am I to do as a parent if my child wants to throw in the towel because he misses his friends so much and want to be around other people? And so that goes back to parents first and foremost. We most certainly want your children to be safe and healthy. But what I will share with you is that there are some ways to engage your children, even in this virtual environment. It may become necessary for you to work with your children to build a game night. Our students have become pretty savvy with their technology. So it may be that your children may need to get with their very best friend They play bingo, they pull up something so that they can still have an interaction, although it is virtual. You may want to get with your child's best friend and see if you guys can do something outside, such as walking, where you still socially distance and you wear your mask, but that does give an opportunity to engage your children in ways that can be meaningful for them and provide some time for them. The other questions that I received centered around sports, and parents are asking lots of questions about sports. Why are we doing sports when our children are still at home? And so what I wanted to share with you is that for the sports, we are using guidance from the Georgia High School Association, as well as the Georgia Department of Public Health, to ensure that the athletes are safe, but also to follow their recommended guidance for opening and playing. So while they are playing, we are still considering those things. I want to share with you as well is that Ms. Watson Harris hosted an athletics town hall for our parents. And that may be something we may look at again to give you all an opportunity to bring more questions to us, to have our athletics departments present so that they can answer questions. So what I will share with you is that that will be a consideration that we will look at again. And those are my two questions. So I am going to pivot back to Ms. Stephanie. I believe I got everybody.
Yes, you did. And once again, Dr. Weaver, thank you so much for reminding the parents that we are answering the questions in the chat. Colleagues, I would like to give you an opportunity just to go through the chat to make sure that we have been responsive to questions. There are just a few more, I think, that I have not been able to answer. And at this time, we will have closing remarks from our superintendent. Once again, thank you.
Well, thank you again to all of the amazing members of our team. I wish you could all just, give them a big round of applause for their thoughtfulness and their response to all of your questions, as well as their presentation. This is the leadership of DeKalb County School District. You have me as your superintendent, you have our chiefs and our deputy superintendents, and you have our regional superintendents. And we really make up the leadership of the school district. And we have a very decentralized orientation to the work. We believe as a leadership team that we work in service of our students and our families and our staff that are our teachers and our principals and our other staff that work day to day to ensure the highest quality educational experience for our students. Again, I just want to thank all of our parents. I want to thank you for your time this evening. I want to thank you for your thoughtfulness and your honesty. I want to thank you for the submission of your questions. And I want to thank you for the, what's the best word to describe it? The robust conversation, even in the chat. And I think that you can see kind of this is what I experience with the emails and the feedback that I receive from our families. We have very strong feelings, and they're not all the same. And so I want you to feel confident that even if you disagree with our decisions, that we have been clear about our decision-making process. So we encourage you to continue to reach out, to share your concerns, share your wonderings. And our commitment to you again is that we will over-communicate. We will over-communicate, we will collaborate, we will all be flexible and adaptable in this kind of unprecedented situation. But I believe one of my colleagues said it best earlier, that we're better together. That we will be guided by the science and by the data, not by pressure, because it represents one specific perspective regarding this situation. So I look forward to continuing to create additional engagement opportunities. I hope everyone has a wonderful evening, that you stay safe, and that you have an enjoyable weekend with your families and loved ones. And until that time, we hope that you log in on Monday for our board meeting to hear more about our plans and the way that we're supporting the district. So I thank you so much to all the members of the leadership team, and we look forward to future opportunities to engage. Good evening. Good night.